Hey guys, and welcome back to the HellfireComms Ghiblithon. Today we're going to be taking a look at Richie's favourite movie in the Ghibli collection. Oh yes, this is Howl's Moving Castle. Big one for Rich, big one for Ghibli in general, so let's not waste any time and get right on into the commentary. If you guys need help syncing up our commentary track to your video file, just check the video description for instructions. Otherwise, we're going to get right on into it in 3, 2, 1. Okay, Rich, this is your show. Tell me a little bit about Howl's Moving Castle, please.
So, to start with, I absolutely adore Howl's Moving Castle. I would say that it's probably my favourite Ghibli film of all time, because it just hits all the right notes for me. It's got a gorgeous score with a phenomenal main theme, which is called the Merry-Go-Round of Life, which I would argue is like the quintessential Ghibli song. If you ever needed to hear any, it's that one from Joe Hisaishi. But also, it's just got a really wonderful story with fascinating characters, really awesome themes that turn certain tropes on their heads, and it's based on a work of literature, which is always really good for me. And yeah, it's just brilliant.
So the castle itself, it's not alive, is it?
Not really. It depends what you mean by the castle's alive.
Well, sentient, essentially.
Not necessarily, but something running the castle might be.
Very interesting. Alright, so we've gone back to sort of the Laputa time frame, sort of. Also, almost Victorian, maybe.
Yeah, it's a mixture of the fictional kingdom and early 20th century technology, so it's sort of that weird balance. I should mention, before we go pretty much anywhere, the film is loosely based on the novel of the same name, Howl's Moving Castle, by British author Diana Wynne-Jones, which came out in 1986.
Ooh.
And was part of a series of books called the Howl series. So, lovely series of books that I've never read, but all to do with Howl, who we will meet later on in the film, obviously, because, I mean, how are you going to have Howl's Moving Castle without... Well, we've seen the Moving Castle, but we haven't met Howl yet, so he'll come.
He'll be within there somewhere, and like I mentioned earlier in the Ghiblithon, I've seen most of this. I think I've seen up to about the middle, second third of the film, so I'm interested to see how it ends.
Well, in typical Ghibli fashion, it's probably going to be slightly out there, but it's... Yeah, I love it, and actually a lot of people really did love it, because it had its premiere in 2004, and went on to gross $190 million in Japan and $235 million worldwide, which made it one of the most financially successful Japanese films in history.
Wow.
It was nominated for Best Animated Feature at the Academy Awards, for the 78th Academy Awards, but unfortunately it lost to Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Really, it should have been Howl's Moving Castle, let's be real. Curse of the Were-Rabbit's a fun film, but it's nowhere near this quality. But it did win several other awards, including 4 Tokyo Anime Awards and a Nebula Award for Best Script. And it received really positive reviews from critics, mostly for the visuals and the treatment of its themes. But what's also, I think, really awesome is that I believe that Hayao Miyazaki has said that it's his favourite creation.
Huh.
Explaining in 2013, I wanted to convey the message that life is worth living, and I don't think that's changed. And I can totally see that, because while Spirited Away is, I would say, the one film that pretty much everyone goes to say this is what you should watch if you want to get a gist of Ghibli.
Oh yeah.
It does have that being perhaps slightly too on the weird side for some people. Whereas I would say that Howl's Moving Castle is The other thing with Spirited Away is it's very Japanese in its myths and legends that it deals with, whereas House Moving Castle is very European and as such sort of very global in that respect. It's that type of fantasy that pretty much everyone has a grasp on.
Oh, monomyths.
And I think, yes, that's why I think it probably would sit better with quite a lot of people.
Creepy. Give us some voice acting trivia to ward off the creepiness, please, Rich.
Yes, so this is Sophie, and she is voiced by Emily Mortimer. You should definitely recognise her voice from various things, but she has been in... Well, I'm just trying to find ones that most people would recognise. So she was in Hugo, which is a delightful film that everyone should watch.
Oh yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Yes, she was the flower seller in that. She was Nicole Durant in the Pink Panther, the reboot version. She was Detective Inspector Alice Frampton in Harry Brown. She was the voice of Holly Shiftwell in Cars 2. And yeah, you will have just seen her in many things, or at least heard her voice. And she's just got one of those really nice voices.
What's going on?
And yes. Well, these are sort of fantasy goop monsters.
I mean, yes, but that doesn't really tell me a lot about the incoming terror, Rich. And I assume this is Howl himself here.
Well, we don't really know who this is just yet, but let's be real, this is Howl.
Look at that iconic shot.
Just this theme, the merry-go-round of life, just... Oh, I can't get enough of it. It's, as I said, my favourite Ghibli song ever. It's just...
The last time a dude was floating above a city that looked like this, it turned out to all be a ruse, if you know what I'm talking about. Fucking only Layton game that I kinda don't like.
Yeah.
That slow realization settling in that yes, I do mean Professor Layton and Miracle Mask.
Well, yeah, and Miracle Mask is easily the weakest of the entire series. But yes, you may have realised, potentially at this point, that this gentleman, who is definitely Hal, even though he hasn't been introduced yet, is voiced by Christian Bale.
Nice.
So yes, obviously most well known for being the voice of Batman in the Christopher Nolan trilogy, but also being in, like, Patrick Bateman in American Psycho, being the lead role in The Machinist and losing like a ludicrous amount of weight for that role, and yeah, just generally being a crazy person when it comes to making sure that he is prepared for a role.
Oh yeah, he's very thorough with his preparations. He was also the voice of Thomas in Pocahontas. I think that was one of his first voice acting roles.
It probably was, yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, he's suave. Is suaveness the same as kindness, Rich? What's your take on that?
Being suave is very different from being kind, because, I mean, let's look at the actual definitions. So, being suave is being charming, confident, and elegant. Whereas being kind is not actually coming up properly on the dictionary. So, of a good or benevolent nature or disposition. I suppose someone who is kind could also be suave, but generally what most people see as being suave does not necessarily lead to said person being kind.
Yeah, I suppose you're right there. So either one or the other, but maybe, just maybe for the love of God, for once, this character can be both.
You might get to that point, potentially, if he has a character arc, but we'll see.
God damn it, Rich. Your subtlety still hasn't improved. You've put no time into this at all.
Of course I've put no time into it. Why should I bother? It's me.
Yep. That's Rich. Oh my god, what's going on?
A little bit of creepy magic.
So it seems that Mr. Howl is not the only wizarding person in town.
Well, definitely not. This is a world where magic exists, so of course there are going to be people who do a lot of magic. And I feel since we did just meet Letty a few moments ago, who is Sophie's sister, she is voiced by Jenna Malone, who most people would probably recognise it as being Joanna Mason in the Hunger Games series. She was also Rocket in Sucker Punch. She was in a film called The Neon Demon, which is actually quite a fascinating film. And also, I believe that she was... I think she was meant to be Barbara Gordon, but she ended up being Janet Clyburn in Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice, although only in the Ultimate Edition because they kind of cut her out of the theatrical release, and yeah, let's just say the less said about that one, the better.
Rolls upon rolls of neck fat.
Yes, she is a rather rotund lady, is she not? And also incredibly rude.
Seriously, like, you come in here, the shop's closed, and you just insult me and my hat. Get out. In fact, you know what? Get out and don't come back.
Yes, this is the Witch of the Waste, who is a pretty awful lady, all things considered. I mean, look at what she's doing. She's doing all sorts of weird magic. But she is voiced by Lauren Bacall, who is, well, was, I should say, one of the greatest female stars of classic Hollywood. She was actually named the 20th greatest female star of classic Hollywood cinema by the American Film Institute in, I think it was probably about 2009. So she has been in loads of really classic things. So she was the leading lady in the Humphrey Bogart film To Have and Have Not, and followed through with film noir in terms of The Big Sleep, Dark Passage, Key Largo, and starred in romantic comedies like How to Marry a Millionaire, and many other things as well. I probably wouldn't recognise any of the performances she's done, but she's just got a really good voice, and obviously she is a stalwart of classic Hollywood.
We're going to ignore this, the fact that Sophie just aged about 60 years after the Witch of the Waste passed through.
What are you talking about? I see absolutely no difference. We're just watching just Sophie walking around.
Yeah, it's just Sophie.
But yes, obviously, in being transformed into an elderly lady, Sophie is now voiced by Gene Simmons. Another of those very, very famous, well, was another of those very, very famous actresses, mostly performing in, film adaptations of stage things. So she performed in the 1948 Hamlet as Ophelia, so that was the Laurence Olivier one. She was Ophelia in that. She was in the film version of Guys and Dolls, which is obviously a classic musical, and she was Sister Sarah Brown in that. And I think that's mostly what people would probably recognise her from, is those sort of big acting roles. So they got two pretty amazing stalwarts of older cinema to voice the two older ladies in this film.
Yeah, don't want to suddenly become an old crone. It wouldn't do to have two old ladies star in a Ghibli film.
Well, no, we've already had two old ladies star in a Ghibli film, although voiced by one lady, but yes.
This is very interesting. We've had young protagonists, we've had middle-aged, but now we have an OAP, essentially. Very out of left field.
Oh, definitely. I think this is particularly one of the things that a lot of people really appreciated about this film, is that there are so many films out there, but they pretty much exclusively follow younger people, middle-aged people, but you hardly ever see a film about an older lady who is the protagonist. And it's brilliant that they did that, because older actresses totally deserve to have films for them. why it's not a thing, I don't know, because there are some amazing older actresses out there. I mean, you only need to look at, like, the key British actresses. You've got Judi Dench, Helen Mirren, you've got Julie Walters, etc. Like, they're amazing, and there need to be more films for them, if you ask me.
Random little shout out, I guess. Helen Mirren was fantastic in The Queen.
Still not seeing The Queen, but Helen Mirren's just pretty much fantastic in whatever she does.
It's very good. I recommend you check it out. I literally just, like, came off another Breath of the Wild play session, because we're recording 3 movies today. I figured I'd best spend my time in between those just hunting for shrines and whatnot, and I cannot find the fucking one where you gotta line up the cedar trees. It's there, I just can't see it.
Yeah, there are some pretty well-hidden shrines in Breath of the Wild. But yeah, I like how you spent your time in between these playing Breath of the Wild, and I was just ironing.
That really does show the difference between us, I think.
Well, I mean, to be honest, it's mostly because I'm home alone this weekend, which is why we're doing 3 in one day.
There you go. Might as well make best use of our time. And where is she going exactly? To see Howl?
I believe so, yes, because she believes that he's the one who ultimately caused the Witch of the Waste to find her and turn her into an old lady, so she thinks that Howl could be the one to fix that.
Huh.
Although mostly I think she's just trying to find any way to break the curse, and it's probably just going to happen upon Howl's moving castle.
Magic. The Scarecrow is one thing I definitely remember from watching the first time, so let's just wait for the inevitable to happen.
What inevitable do you think is going to happen?
Well, gorgeous backgrounds, for one thing. You seen that shit right there?
Yeah, just the entire film is stunning.
Sorry, I'd be Stan now. You're familiar, even.
You're an elderly lady, you probably need a stick to get up here, because, I mean, most people would probably struggle with that in this sort of wind.
Actually, I never thought about that. She's a lot more vulnerable now, just to the elements and whatnot.
Oh yeah, because as you get older, obviously your bones start to really feel the chill a lot more, and I'm loving that this cane has a bird hand, because it makes me look at Sophie and think she comes across as a very Mary Poppins-y type figure, who's just actually more of a normal person, but it's just that bird cane, it's Mary Poppins all over. And actually, that's quite fitting, because Emily Mortimer is going to be in Mary Poppins Returns as Jane Banks.
Huh. Interesting.
Yes.
Oh, will she be playing the grown-up version of Jane Banks?
Yes, because I think the whole idea of Mary Poppins Returns is it's the Banks kids have grown up and Mary Poppins comes to help out their kids.
Okay.
I think that's the idea. And it's got Lin-Manuel Miranda as Mary Poppins' mate. And Mary Poppins is played by the delightful Emily Blunt.
I wonder if Dick Van Dyke's going to have a cameo in that.
We'll see. He might do. I would prefer Julie Andrews to have a cameo in it, but I don't think she will do, because I think she's pretty much said, no, I'm stepping away from this, because really, I don't want to get in on Emily Blunt's groove, and also, that is definitely a moving castle.
Yep, yes it is. It is in fact Disney coming to take Julie Andrews and put her in Mary Poppins 2, whether she likes it or not. Damn, man, that is iconic as fuck. How'd you even come up with a design like that?
Honestly, I don't know, but it's a stunning piece of animation. I mean, just look at all the different bits that are moving. It's a technical marvel, if you ask me.
Is that CGI or rotoscope?
I really don't know. I would assume that some bits of it are perhaps CGI, but it's all so well knitted together that really you can't see.
There you go. Such a mundane action, like trying to get onto a train or something, but it's a moving castle instead.
Exactly.
Well, I'm coming in. Haven't really got an invitation, but outside is cold as fuck, so you'll forgive me if I intrude. What a nice scarecrow. I imagine she would have actually invited him inside if he was a carrot instead.
Potentially, but also I don't think it would have fitted through the door, if you ask me.
Yeah, true, true. If you had to have a moving home, what kind of domicile would you like?
That's a really odd and difficult question, Tom. Why must you ask me these things? I suppose it'd just be a flying house, if you ask me. Like a very normal house that can just fly. I'm sort of talking like the Up House, but not with balloons, because I wouldn't want to, be at the whims of the wind. More so, perhaps something like a Howl's Moving Castle, but something that's just actually a house, rather than this sort of technical monstrosity.
Oh, Fire Spirit.
Fire Spirit, who has, one of the best voice actors ever. It's Billy Crystal! Who, obviously, everyone will recognise as being Mike Wazowski in Monsters, Inc.
Yes, yes, yes.
And then obviously from other things like When Harry Met Sally and so on and so forth.
Yeah, we just go with what we know. As for my, moving domicile, that's my favourite word today, I'd probably have something like a divine beast, like flying and such.
Yeah, that'd be quite cool, but the divine beasts are very empty inside. You need some furniture in there and some interior decorating to just, warm the place up a little bit.
I'd get a divine settee, some divine throw cushions, just deck it out with divine furniture.
Yeah, that sounds like it'd be quite cool if you ask me.
So, multiple people with magical maladies in this film. He's trapped in the castle, having to power it. She's trapped in the body of an old woman.
Turnip head, turnip head.
Oh, I thought he was just an animate, scarecrow.
No, he's subject to a curse as well. What it is, who said it, we don't know, but he's also cursed, the poor thing.
I mean, that looks like a divine beast, does it not? Just the way it moves?
Yeah, it does, but I would say it's more awesome than a divine beast.
Fair enough. I'm sorry, I'm on a Breath of the Wild kick. I'll shut up about it by the time we reach 2019, I'm sure.
I'm sure you will, but don't worry, because I'll be talking about Bayonetta 3 until the cows come home.
Nice.
Because, oh my god, Bayonetta 3's a thing!
The Great Wizard Jenkins, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Hang on. Wasn't she just in the moving castle?
Well, she is in the moving castle.
Huh? Don't know why I'm surprised. Magic runs throughout the DNA of this film.
Exactly.
That kid has a very Ni no Kuni-esque design.
I think what you mean is that Ni no Kuni's child protagonist was probably heavily based on this little lad.
What the fuck?
I know. But, do you know who voices this little boy?
I do not.
It is Josh Hutcherson, who most people would recognise as being, I believe it's Peter, in the Hunger Games series.
Do I look like the kind of guy who watches the Hunger Games?
No, but also he was in Bridge to Terabithia, and that film is really depressing.
Alright, the one with the really sad ending that I'm not going to spoil here.
Well, it's not a sad ending. It pretty much comes about at least 2/3 of the way into the film. He was also in The Polar Express, and he was in Journey to the Mysterious Island. He was also in Epic, and has been in various other films and so on and so forth as well.
So is he like Howl's apprentice or something?
Effectively, yes.
So wizarding stuff is just practiced out in the open?
Pretty much, yes.
Huh. It's kind of a refreshing take on it. The thing Ghibli doesn't really seem to do, like, muggles and wizards separated. Like, just look at Kiki's Delivery Service.
Yeah, I mean, really, there's no need to separate them, I suppose, in the Ghibli world, because they are just naturally very fantastical, and it just makes sense for there to be wizards and magicians in the world. I believe that Tales from Earthsea might be slightly different in that the guy who is the wizard is a bit of an outcast, but there's very few things about that.
Lots of customers today.
A lot of customers. I think Sophie's having a TARDIS moment.
Yeah, a little bit.
Not necessarily, oh my god, it's bigger on the outside, more, oh my god, I can transport through space. Not time, but definitely space.
My first clue was the fact that Hal was addressed by another name.
Yes.
An alias, if you will.
Yes, he has a few of those. I can't remember all of them. That one was the Great Wizard Pendragon. I think the other one was Jenkins.
I don't know what the Jenkins thing is, but Pendragon just puts me in mind of Arthur Pendragon and Merlin.
Well, yes, that's exactly what it is referring to. I'm actually going to see if I can find out about Wizard Jenkins. So actually, the reason that he uses Jenkins and Pendragon is because that's actually part of his full name. His full name is Howl Jenkins Pendragon.
Huh.
And apparently he originates from Wales. Which, that's pretty awesome if you ask me. And also just the mess of this place. Oh my god, it's... no. Oh, sending my OCD off the charts.
Oh, shush. Just look at the Ghibli food and be at ease.
I'm fine with the Ghibli food, but the Ghibli mess is... oh no.
Good job, Sophie knows what's what around an oven. Let's get some bacon and eggs going.
Yeah, that'd be lovely. I mean, I prefer gammon and eggs if you're asking, just because, I mean, I love a bit of bacon, but I don't necessarily have them with eggs, but gammon, definitely.
Fire Demon, yes. Scary, no. He's cute as fuck.
Definitely, and also he's voiced by Billy Crystal, so he can't be scary even if he tried.
Good casting, though. I think he really fits the character.
I think they did phenomenal casting in pretty much everybody in this film. Like, they just pull it off beautifully.
Not having dinner until after this movie's done, and I'm already kind of getting hungry. Oh. That was just a void. What the hell?
Yes, it was, and pretty depressing out there. And also, Howl looks really, really knackered. Could probably do with some food. It's a good job Sophie's cooking right now.
He's still suave, even with the old ladies.
At this point, it would imply, anyway, that he is a gentleman to all, rather than just being a gentleman to the pretty young women, which is certainly better than he could be.
I love his coat, just the pink and the black diamonds is really iconic.
Pretty much everything about this film is iconic. Just the character designs, some of the shots, the merry-go-round of life, just everything. You can see why I do just find this such a brilliant film, because not only has it got the drama, it's also got the comedy, and it balances itself out really well. Whereas, if you look at something like Spirited Away, it's just that little bit serious throughout the majority of the film, and doesn't have any moments of actually lovely levity like this. And I think that's probably part of the reason why I prefer Howl's Moving Castle to Spirited Away.
Okay.
Because it's just got that overall greater breadth of emotions that go into it, I suppose.
Yeah, I can see that also. I never realised there isn't really much comedy in Spirited Away at all. It takes itself very seriously.
Yeah, like the most levity you get is just when nice things happen. It's not there actually being any comedy, which is fine. That totally makes sense for what Spirited Away is and what it's trying to do. But it then makes it, for me anyway, a film that then I have to be in the right mood to want to watch. Because obviously there are so many films out there which are either incredibly difficult to watch, like Grave of the Fireflies, or something like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where you've got to be properly in the mood for that type of film, and then other films which you can just watch, no matter when, if you would like. And I think Howl's Moving Castle sits in that, while also just being a really damn good film at the same time, and I think that's part of what levitates it above Spirited Away, for me anyway.
Didn't really rhyme either. Not a fan.
No, and also, yeah, it really was not good for the table, so let's get rid of that, thank you.
Starting to see a little bit of a dark side in Howl.
Yeah, he's a very complex man, is Howl.
Find it interesting that they fed Calcifer eggshells, because don't they produce sulfur?
Probably, yeah. I don't really know much about the science of eggshells. And this is what happens when you can't speak about a curse. Go, Sophie!
Yeah! It's funny, whenever you get a curse like this, they never think to write stuff down.
I don't think she'd be able to. I have the feeling that, well, Sophie hasn't necessarily thought of that. The Witch of the Waste probably did and has prevented that from being a thing that can happen.
Yeah.
I mean, some people actually do think of that sort of stuff. I mean, if you look at Shakespeare's Titus Andronicus, very bloody play, incredibly bloody, to the point of sometimes hilarity, depending on how it's done. But the two sons of this, I can't remember what she's called, but the Moor Queen, they rape Titus's daughter, and to prevent her from saying that it was them that did it, they cut out her tongue to stop her from talking, And then they cut off her arms as well, so that she can't write it down.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's a very, very bloody film. Play. Thankfully, eventually, she does end up writing it down by getting a massive stick and using her stubs to kind of draw that way. But yeah, they full on go, no, you're shutting up.
I thought that was going to end with her growing her tongue and, like, arms back, but alas, no.
No, it's Shakespeare, and it's a Shakespeare tragedy. Everybody dies in Shakespeare tragedies, especially Titus Andronicus.
He's got a bit of a haircut, a new jacket.
Yeah, he's looking dead fancy as hell.
Well, he's got a trip to the palace or whatever.
Well, he's going somewhere into the void. Well, now it's a fiery void.
What the hell?
Delightful.
Did he just, like, descend into hell?
I'm not sure, but
The antics.
I know. What I love... I mean, I'm going to say this a lot. I think I've already said that I'm going to say this a lot. But what I love about Old Sophie is just the sense of humour is just a very dry wit that's just like, ain't putting up with no shit. But it's doing that, but with a sense of humour about it and just going, this is really annoying, but I'm just going to laugh and just be really sarcastic about this.
Yeah.
Because, hey, what else are you going to do? I've been turned into an old woman. I've not got much of a choice in the matter here. At least give me something to do.
That's a good point. Apart from the initial angst, there hasn't been much, like, fretting over it. Yeah, she wants to try and maybe reverse it, but it's not affecting her overall outlook on things.
No, she's just being really stubborn, just going, no, I'm not letting this get the better of me. I'm going to do what I want to do. And it's just like, you go, Sophie.
Operating at 200% capacity, and then the castle just fucking moves to light speed.
So, since we're in the cleaning up the castle sequence, did you want a little bit of production history to do with Howl's Moving Castle?
Go for it, mate.
Because thankfully the Wikipedia page for this film is nice and full, which I like. So, in September 2001, Ghibli announced the production of 2 films. The first would become The Cat Returns, and the second was an adaptation of Diana Wynne Jones's novel Howl's Moving Castle. Apparently there was a rumour that persists that Miyazaki had an idea to do Howl's Moving Castle during a visit to Strasbourg Christmas market. Toshio Suzuki, who produced Howl's Moving Castle, stated that Miyazaki was inspired to make the film when he read Jones's novel and was struck by the image of a castle moving around the countryside. The novel doesn't explain how the castle moved, and Miyazaki was interested in figuring out how it might move, which led to the image of a castle on chicken legs. The complex moving castle changes and rearranges itself several times throughout the movies in response to Howl's eccentricity in various situations. But the basic structure of the castle consists of more than 80 elements, including turrets, a wagging tongue, cogwheels and chicken legs that were rendered as digital objects. So yes, these are bits of CGI, but masterfully brought into the whole thing. You did have Mamoru Hosoda of Toei Animation, who was originally selected to direct the film. He also directed Digimon the Movie, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, Summer Wars, Wolf Children, and so on and so forth. And also directed, actually, Digimon Adventure, 20-minute film, some of the episodes of Digimon, and also done some Dragon Ball Z stuff, so they were going to bring him in, but he quit the project after Studio Ghibli's executives rejected many of his concept ideas, and the film was shelved until Miyazaki took over. So that was in February 2003, and it was scheduled to be completed in the spring of 2004 and released in the summer of that year. So Miyazaki went to Colmar and Ricoeur in Alsace, France, to study the architecture and the surroundings for the setting of the film. Additional inspiration came from the concept of future technology in Albert Rabida's work. Commentators have stated that Miyazaki's imagery was influenced by his fondness for the illusion art of 19th century Europe. Suzuki stated that unlike many Western films in which the imagery went from the general to the specific, Miyazaki employed a uniquely Japanese approach, frequently beginning with a very specific image and moving from there. However, Howl's Moving Castle and Miyazaki films in general have a focus on realistic imagery in a way that other anime films do not, although I would say, countering that, there are some anime films that go much further in using realistic imagery than any Miyazaki film ever does. The film was produced digitally, but the original backgrounds were drawn by hand and painted prior to being digitised, and the characters were also drawn by hand prior to scanning them into the computer. The 1,400 storyboard cuts for the film were completed in January 2004, and on the 25th of June that year the in-between animation was completed, and check-in was completed on the 26th of June. Ghibli used digital technology to run many copies of the still portions of a scene, a process which avoids inconsistencies between various still frames but can create an impression of artificiality. Therefore, the studio chose to manually retouch the digitally altered images, recreating the feel of a hand-drawn image, and I think that's part of the reason why Howl's Moving Castle looks as beautiful as it does.
Yeah.
Because it very much feels like a piece of hand-drawn animation, even though it is pretty much entirely digital.
The hell is going on here?
Well, Howl is sort of a wizard bird man.
Huh. Kind of reminds me of Yubaba turning into the crow thing in Spirited Away.
Yeah. Definitely similarities there, for sure.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, he does not look good after that.
What was even the point of travelling to that realm? Just to combat the threat of the other things?
Pretty much, he's trying to help in the war that is taking place that we've heard rumblings of throughout the film, but yeah, I think he's just trying to do the right thing, and obviously this sort of thing takes its toll on him.
Yeah, seems like pretty powerful magic. Huh. What, was he being serious about that? Are there other fire spirits out there?
There probably are, but there's only one Calcifer.
Yeah, aw. Oh, the whole place is going to be beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous.
Look. When she's asleep, Sophie returns to her young self. Not that she's ever going to know that.
Interesting. That's a really unique take on a curse like that.
Oh, definitely. It's basically the complete opposite to what happens in Shrek with Princess Fiona. Of, obviously, whenever it's day, she is normal and a human, but when the sun sets, she turns into an ogre and must sleep that way.
Are we in for a comfy market scene, Richie?
We are indeed in for a comfy market scene, and Sophie's just going to be awesome throughout all of it. She's just awesome throughout the entire film.
She's pretty fun, yeah. I like how the child character isn't obnoxious, either. He's a bit rambunctious, sure, but he's not like fucking Bart Simpson tier.
Oh, definitely. He's just a kid at the end of the day, and just a very believable child at that. Like, he's a little bit more mature for his age than he could be. But he's just a young kid, and the film makes no discrepancies for that.
Yeah.
That sentence probably didn't make much sense, but I'm sure you got the gist of what I was going for.
It's fine, it's fine. Oh my god.
Yeah, that ship's not looking too good, is it?
So I'm assuming that was the dark creatures that had a hand in that.
Most likely, yes.
Ooh.
Yeah, might want to get inside ASAP.
But what would the Witch of the Waste want with her now? She's already had her fun.
Well, what she wants is she wants Howl's heart.
What? I didn't see anything drop there.
Magic bombs, let's just put it that way.
That's terrifying, like invisible bombs.
I mean, you probably could see them, but
What? Oh, I thought he said fires. He was talking about the flyers.
Yeah, flyers and enemy propaganda.
No, you're completely wrong. They're showing explosions because they love us.
Yeah, totally. That's totally why someone would bomb someone.
This place looks pretty spick and span now. Sophie did a pretty thorough job.
She did indeed, and she's pretty much gone throughout most of the house. Although...
I remember this, actually. I remember this quite vividly.
It shows that Howl is kind of a bit of an emotional gentleman who, a bit superficial. Well, not a bit superficial, very superficial. But I'm sure he will grow, and also, I hope that towel doesn't slip any further.
Hang on. If he could change his hair, why was he freaking out? Also, he turned into a Birdman earlier.
I know, but I mean, slightly concerned about where this is going to lead with him changing his hair colour and also, you know, causing the castle to freak the hell out.
So is this a metaphor for depression, or...?
This is what happens when Howl gets depressed, yes.
Oh my God.
He goes ultra slimy and starts to go just ultra weird and annoying. Really, he just needs slapping to break him out of this, because this is just daftness.
That should do it, yeah. The only woman in his life storming off.
Yeah. And also the only woman who's actually looked after his entire bloody house for once.
Go on, girl. But yeah, I think you deserve it at this point.
Oh god, yes. She's kept that in for a lot of this film so far.
I will say what I like about Hal being presented like this fucking Lovecraftian nightmare is that even though there is pretty much no divide between magic and Muggle, essentially, it's still presented as a really big deal, like unknowable to Sophie completely.
Oh, definitely.
And because, you know, she's our window into the film, it makes us appreciate how grand everything is. So many jokes I could make here, but I'm not going to. He just finished No Fap November, the poor lad. Sorry, I couldn't. Too obvious. Down or down?
There's certainly more than I needed to see. in an animated children's film, but there we go. I've watched The Room, so I've seen far worse.
How is your sex life, Richie?
It's non-existent, thank you.
Okay. Just so
Oh,
we're
hi,
all
Mark.
clear. You fucker.
You're tearing me apart, Tom!
Yeah, well, I don't know if that's a joke or wherever you mean it. It could honestly be both. Man, Hal's room is so extra. Like, do you really need all these contraptions?
Well, clearly Howl lives a very cluttered life, so that, I mean, partially that would explain why the rest of the castle ended up being as much of a mess as it was. But at least his mess in here has a sort of aesthetic to it, rather than just being really disgustingly messy.
Baby wants his bottle, goo goo gaga?
Well, yeah, we know that much.
Also, that's why it moves. Oh, okay, roll credits, we're done here.
Now, since we are in a slightly slower bit of the film right now, probably a bit of an emotional stuff going on, did you want to know some of the differences between the film and the original novel?
Oh yeah, go for it, mate.
So, I mean, obviously there are several differences, mostly due to the different requirements of the two media. The original novel has a very large cast of characters and several plot threads that were just too complex to be transferred into the film. So characters like Sophie's second sister Martha are left out, as is a plot thread involving Markle, who was called Michael in the novel and depicted as an adolescent rather than as a young boy, courting Martha. Jones discussed the film with Ghibli representatives, but didn't have any input or involvement in the production of the film, I think because she pretty much thought, well, I just want to let them get on with it. Miyazaki travelled to England in the summer of 2004 to give her a private viewing of the finished film, and she was quoted as saying, "It's fantastic. No, I have no input. I write books, not films. Yes, it will be different from the book. In fact, it's likely to be very different, but that's as it should be. It will still be a fantastic film." And I think that's lovely that a writer of the original novel gave Ghibli her blessing for doing their own thing and then was very happy with the results, because obviously it's very often the case where things like that happen and the writer just goes, "What the frick did you do to my book?" So, differences. The novel depicts House Castle as tall, dark, and sinister, like a full-on wizard's tower, which is obviously very different to the one in the film. The film's castle may be seen as a parody of the machines seen in the movie, which are driven by both steam engines and by magic. In the film, it's a rotund collage of chimneys, roofs, steam pipes, and other odd appendages borne along on mechanised bird legs that's similar to Baba Yaga's hut in a popular fairy tale in... I believe it's... Actually, no, it's Russian. That's where that's from. It's vaguely organic and depicted as a life form. Similarly, Calcifer is a demonic figure in the book, directly in contrast to the very endearing persona and image that he has in the film. But ultimately, both the film and the novel try to render the fantastic elements as mundane and ordinary things. Obviously, they are quite big and grand, but they are very normal in this world. So they're quite happy to do, and well, also you have characters performing routine tasks like cooking breakfast or washing up, alongside the more heroic actions typical of fantasy.
Yeah.
In the novel, Jones disrupts the fantasy world setting by including scenes in which characters travel to the real-world Wales, but the movie just ignores that digression and maintains just a constant setting of this fantasy world. Miyazaki's biggest addition to the plot of the book was the war, and using that as a large part of the plot. In the book, it was only tangentially referred to, so you have the king ordering Howl to find the king's missing brother Justin, because Justin's military skills are needed for a forthcoming war, and Howl's frequent disappearances are because of his womanizing habits, which makes Sophie see him as a superficial and cowardly person. However, in the film, Howl disappears from the scene in order to transform into a giant bird to disrupt the battle plans of both armies, so he's effectively being a much better person in the film.
Yeah.
You also have the roles of several characters differing. The Witch of the Waste, here, is the chief antagonist of the book, but in the film, she is at least an antagonist for now, but that might change as time goes on. The same will go for a character that we're actually going to meet very shortly. Howl loses the rakish womanizing aspects in the film, obviously, and I think also, well, in contrast, Sophie becomes a much more conventional figure because she's far less grumpy and outspoken, and obviously she's going to have a little bit of feelings for Howl, shall we say, and they come about earlier and much more explicitly. There's also a whole through line in the novel of Sophie becoming a powerful sorceress in her own right, which is muted in the film. Very much so.
I think that works for the film.
Oh yeah, definitely. And also the thematic focus of the story differs between novel and film. Reviewer Antonia Levi wrote that the experience of watching the film was similar to reading high-quality fan fiction. Although the characters and setting were the same, the story was different. However, in both cases, the story begins with Sophie being a prisoner of her circumstances and of social norms. The ultimate challenges that she faces are slightly different. Levi said that Jones uses Sophie, Howl and Calcifer in a fairy tale format to tell a story about challenging class and gender expectations. Miyazaki uses the same characters to tell a story about personal loyalty, love, and war. So that's kind of where they vary. And I think that, as you can tell, it works for the film. There are a lot of books which do not necessarily translate to the screen that well, and in order to get them to work, you do have to make changes, and I think that this is one of the instances where doing that worked, and it's especially nice when you have been given the blessing of the original writer to do what you like, to get it to work in this type of medium.
Can't really figure out whether to be amused or disgusted by this.
Both, I think, is a quite fitting response. Also, maybe a little bit satisfied because she's really struggling, and while Sophie's struggling as well because she's obviously at the minute a 90-year-old woman, but she's just like proving that even though she's 90, she can still make it up those stairs like a badass, carrying a dog while she's at it.
Ugh, it's like a like in drag. So who is this dog? Where did he come from exactly?
Don't know. I'm sure we'll find out.
I think I've already kind of figured it out. I think my memories are slowly coming back. Oh my god. Yeah, that's very lucky on Sophie's part that she didn't wind up dementia-ridden.
Yeah, that would have pretty much completely screwed her over, but hey, thankfully I think she was a relatively strong person, so that wasn't part of the curse, and she's able to fight on through this.
Mm-hmm.
And also, she's a better human being than the Witch of the Waste because she's now going to cheer her on to get to the end because she's just not a complete bitch like the Witch of the Waste.
That dude on the left fucking pranced, nay, minced into screen from stage left even. Da-da-da, da-da, Jesus. She looks like the old one now, just the Witch of the Waste. Don't think she's completely telling the truth, though.
Definitely not.
That's me. After doing anything outside for an extended period of time.
Certainly how I feel quite a lot of the time when I've come back from doing anything. It's just like, ugh.
Yeah, tuck me in, let me die. Oh. Boy looked very Howl-ish.
He did, yes. He's not Howl. I don't think he's even related to Howl, but hey.
Gonna cook you alive. Ah, no! What? Is this some kind of ritual?
Not some kind of ritual, more... Someone is, how shall I put it? Trying to beat up the, Witch of the Waste and punish her, so to speak. And said person would be this lady right here.
A bigger magical force, perhaps?
Sort of, yes. This is Madame Solomon, who is voiced by Blythe Danner. Most people would recognise as being Marilyn Truman on Will and Grace. She's also Dina Burns in Meet the Parents and its sequels, Meet the Fockers and Little Fockers. She's also the mother of Gwyneth Paltrow. I'm just seeing if there's anything else on here that people would recognise, but... yeah, not really. She's done a lot of theatre as well, which is always nice.
Oh, she's playing the role of Hal's mother. That's very interesting.
Yes, well, I mean, she's old enough to pull it off. Well, she's probably a bit too old to pull it off, to be honest, but still.
Oh my god!
Yeah, she got pretty screwed over.
Oh, okay, so it's a might makes right kind of situation. Gotta prune the weak.
Well, less might makes right and more get rid of all the bad people who have magic because, yeah, they're just going to make the world a worse place because they're selfish buggers.
Huh. So it's a good character with less than noble intentions.
Effectively, yes, and obviously as I was going through all those differences, the Witch of the Waste is the chief antagonist of the book, but the film conflates two characters, Mrs. Penstemon and the wizard Solomon, into Madame Solomon, and she is the closest that the film gets to a traditional villain in the film, because obviously her motivations are ambiguous, And actually, quite a lot of reviewers did end up saying that the real villain of the film is the war itself, which obviously fits very neatly into Miyazaki's whole shtick of pacifism.
So is she like the queen, then?
No, she is the king's most trusted advisor, effectively.
Okay, I got you. Well, I mean, it's... Go ahead, I guess. I'll save the Avada Kedavras for myself. What's going on?
Well, one of those is the king, one of them is not. Can you guess which?
Yeah, this is Howl. This is most definitely Howl. Oh. Oh. Okay. Oh, I didn't realise we were starting Tales from Earthsea this early.
You know, there's actually not very much to do with the sea in Tales from Earthsea.
Well, that's just one point off it already. Did he come from space? Is that what you're trying to tell me, movie?
It's not what the film's trying to say, no, but what it is trying to say is that effectively something from the stars led to Hal being the way he is.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Got all ethereal all of a sudden.
And yeah, this is what Hal turns into when he goes to try and stop the war. Thankfully, turning into that right now has allowed him to help them escape, which is always helpful.
So was he playing Solomon then? Like, she thought, ooh, I'll show Sophie who you really are. It's like, ha, psych, fooled you.
Pretty much, yes. Also, I think it would be kind of animal abuse if they tossed the dog.
I can't just look at her.
I know. It's fascinating turning the Witch of the Waste into just this shriveled old lady. Because obviously it's just how different she ends up becoming with age. And it does just make it then really fascinating because you have this dynamic of three elderly women really being the driving forces of this narrative, because you've got Sophie, you've got the Witch of the Waste, and then you've got Madame Solomon. It's just like, bloody hell.
So the ring he gave her is basically a compass to always find the moving castle.
Effectively, yes.
Huh? That's not invisibility. That's just, I'm not sure entirely what happened there.
Well, what happened was that he made them invisible, but made himself not invisible and created a mirage of himself on the flying thing.
Interesting. Well, so they know all the spots, essentially, where he pops out.
Yeah, although the castle's not there anymore.
Yeah, give Howl some credit. He may be a bit of a playboy, but he's no fool.
Definitely not.
Oh, what a shot. Again with the flying scenes. Alright, come on, Miyazaki, we know you love them. we'll get to fucking When the Wind Rises soon enough.
We will indeed get to The Wind Rises soon enough, but we've got another many films to get to before then.
I thought that dog was Howl to begin with. I guess the blonde hair kind of threw me off.
Yeah, Sophie thought that that dog was Howl to begin with, because he said that he would be with her all the way to Solomon's place, but he was just going to stay hidden. So she saw the dog and thought, that's you, Howl. I'll bring you with me. And then it turns out that it's Solomon's dog, and she's just like, you lying little shit. It's certainly one way to land the thing.
How did she not take any damage there at all?
She must have just aimed it just right.
I guess. I'll accept it.
Also, it's a magical moving castle on chicken legs. Just accept anything at this point.
Once again, turns younger when she's sleeping. I'm amazed that none of the other characters have told her this. Unless they have, and I just haven't been paying attention.
No, none of them have said anything, but none of them really are going to say anything, because really Howl's the only one who's actually noticed, and he's just a little bit of a dick.
Imagine if you woke up and you saw something like that moving next to you.
Well, I think Sophie's bound to wake up and see something like that moving next to her.
Huh? He's still staying young?
Mm-hmm.
Still young? Alright, where are we going with this?
Well, what this would, I suppose, begin to suggest is that the curse isn't necessarily attached to being awake or asleep. It's attached to something else.
Nice bit of music here.
Just the entire score is stunning. It's Joe Hisaishi at his best, I would say.
This is usually the part of a movie of this length where we enter the second act and something dark happens.
We are, I'd say, if anything, we're inching towards the end of the second act. I'd say your second act effectively begins when the summons come through for Howl to go to Madame Solomon. And then, yes, we're leading to this bit where Sophie's going to see Howl in his monstrous form.
I wonder if fear is the trigger.
No.
Okay. Just a wild guess.
A wild guess, but an incorrect one. So, Howl has basically just turned into Batman, because he's using his Batman voice.
Where are the other drugs going?
Where is she?
Oh, Christ. So if you don't have a heart, is there a time limit if you're a magic dude?
Tom, why are you asking me these questions? I don't blooming know.
You have the synopsis on hand, Mr. Man.
I had the synopsis, but it doesn't reveal that sort of information. How much detail do you think synopses go into?
Whatever. God, how high up are we in the bands?
Quite high up. Probably for the best, if you ask me.
Hello, Turnip Head. Heave-ho!
You know, for a 90-year-old woman, she's got some strength in her.
Yeah? That's that will, that stubbornness to survive. These things kind of remind me of what the pirates flew in Laputa.
Yes! I can't even remember what those were called, but they are sort of similar in terms of how they work, aren't they? And just quite awesome.
Oh, Sophie, you are precious and pure.
Yeah, I don't think a curtain's gonna fix that one.
This is actually kind of depressing now, because remember I was talking about dementia?
Yes. That's effectively what she's got. She mentioned to Sophie I should have made you senile, and now she basically is senile. Well, now he knows that there's a massive hole in the wall.
Oh, lordy. Well, you'll go good on the fire. You can come in, and we can eat your head.
No, you can't do that to Turnip Head. He's too nice.
I can and will. Also, he's got a Totoro smile.
That's exactly why you shouldn't eat his head. The Totoro smile is a symbol of all that is good in this world. Yeah, we going full on magic circle for this.
Again, it's the mundanity of doing all these fantastical things that you were talking about.
Exactly. It's one of those things that just works really well. There's actually another series that, oh god, what's it called? Oh no. I'm just gonna see if I can.
Another series that's what, mate. Finish your thoughts, please.
I was just trying to figure out what it was. So there's a series called, well, it was a book that then became a TV series on the BBC called Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, which is all to do with magic and bringing back lost magic in Britain. And it's all to do with the mundaneness of magic. And you have two different kind of thoughts. You have Jonathan Strange, who performs magic in a much more fantastical, grand, more natural way, whereas Mr. Norrell, really, it's the books and doing things by the book and removing all of the mystery out of it. And you've got those two contrasting points of thought. And I think in the novel, the person who wrote it really went hard on... Well, so the writer was Susanna Clarke. She really went hard on the specificity of how things worked and making magic mundane, which is definitely a difficult task.
Isn't Mia, is she at a halfway point between young and old right now?
She's definitely reaching a sort of halfway point. So yes, this should certainly look familiar.
You mean the thing that's coming up or the thing that we just saw?
The thing that we just saw.
Well, you're going to have to refresh my memory, because I'm drawing a blank here.
Well, it's very, very similar to Sophie's Old Hat Shop.
Ah. Also this.
And also... Oh!
Look at it!
I know, just this and the strings of the merry-go-round of life, just... Oh! Just love this so much!
Just got chills, man.
You just look at this, it's beautiful!
So what is the trigger for her turning old? It's starting to bug me now.
Isn't it obvious?
Is it love?
I think it might be, Tom.
Love makes you young, of course.
Well, not necessarily love makes you young. More... Love puts her more in control of her own body, I feel. Because if you think about it, when she was working in that shop, she didn't feel loved. She was just effectively an old spinster before her time. And so, effectively, when the Witch of the Waste set the curse on her, she effectively became what she felt like. And obviously, it's maybe not necessarily happening so much anymore.
That's a very good looking monster, if so.
Very good looking monster.
Yeah, I kind of figured he was trying to make her a happy placater before he vanishes, maybe for good.
Yeah, pretty much, although really that's not going to make her happy, is it now?
Huh? What you sensing, boy? Is it coming over the horizon?
Yep.
Do we ever see the enemy, like any of their regiments or commanders, or?
Well, I would say, as Howl said, does it really matter? I mean, one of the things that's brought up on the Wikipedia page, as I'm sure you'd expect, is the whole thing of the pacifism and Howl's Moving Castle's strong anti-war themes, which I think were very strongly influenced by Miyazaki's distaste for the 2003 Iraq War. Something that I'm pretty sure, when he received the Oscar for Spirited Away, he said he had a great deal of rage about the war, so he felt some hesitation about receiving that Oscar. And on the eve of the Iraq War, he decided to make a film that he felt would be poorly received in the United States. But obviously, Howl's Moving Castle did then go on to be actually quite successful. But literary scholar Danny Cavallaro stated that Miyazaki was able to create a film which ought in principle to have caused a certain unease among American audiences. Because obviously you have Madame Solomon, who appears to only have sadistic motivations for creating a conflict, and despite being omniscient is unable to recognise the idiocy of war. And it kind of reflects Miyazaki's desire to show real-world conflicts as also being somewhat arbitrary and fueled by the desires of capricious people. Cavallaro stated that the depiction of the war carried an unmistakable bitter taste. But yes, with the universe of Howl's Moving Castle, there are no real clear-cut villains and heroes. Instead, you just have complex characters, and even those that are initially portrayed in perhaps a negative light are perhaps shown as being capable of change, but also being not necessarily entirely negative in terms of how they are. A gentleman called Matt Kimmich has stated that the simplistic message of the film is that war is bad, but obviously it deals with so much more than that. And I think the key idea of the simplicity of the war is bad message comes from the scene that we've just seen of Sophie standing in that beautiful field of flowers, being interrupted by the war machine, and that being a finger accusing the Empire as the destroyer of peace. Apparently that is seen in stark contrast to Princess Mononoke, which criticises military conflict in a more nuanced manner. So, Andrew Osmond stated that Howl's pure-hearted anti-war stance is presented as nihilism with no alternatives, as he fights forces from each side and becomes the worst terror of all. And that is in contrast to Ashitaka, who, in Princess Mononoke, who fights the demonic sickness with which he's afflicted and tries to negotiate peace between the two sides. So there is that stark contrast. Something that Osmond also mentioned is that both films point out the limits of masculinity, but in very different ways. But I would agree in saying that Howl's Moving Castle is much more clear in its simplistic message of war is bad, but then war is bad, and while there are obviously complex motivations on the different sides generally, really most, and this is me being all sort of slightly social justice warrior-y type deal, most people, you should always try and stop war because war is bad, because all it does is lead to hate and destruction. So really you should just try to make the world a better place. And yes, this is Sophie's mother.
I like how she instantly just accepts Sophie.
Well, yes, but it's just good.
That's so odd, the old woman saying mother, and the mother is like half her age at that point, if that.
I know, it's insane. Right, I just wanted to double check a little something. So, Sophie's mother, Honey, Honey Hatter, as she's called, is voiced by Mari Devon, who's actually most known for being the voice of Togemon in Digimon Adventure, Renamon in Digimon Tamers, and then Taminobi in Doraemon. And she's been in various other anime things as well.
So there's something in that bag. Is that really? No.
Yeah.
Wait, is that actually Sophie's mom? I'm getting conflicting things here.
It's definitely Sophie's mother. It's just that Letty, Sophie's sister, looks much more like her mother than Sophie ever did. I believe that Sophie probably looks much more like her father, who is nowhere to be seen.
Aww. It's beautiful.
It's just so cute, and oh god, don't do that, Doc. Get that awful stench out of here.
Fucking toking the smoke up in here. I don't know, we've got about 25 minutes left, so I'm assuming something grand is going to happen soon.
Something very grand indeed is going to happen. It's going to go typical Ghibli insanity for the ending of this film, but it's quite fantastical, and it's going to hopefully lead to a happy ending for everybody, but we'll see whether that ends up happening or not.
I'm going to be honest, this will probably be the last film we record today, just because I'm kind of burning out right now. In a good way. I am enjoying the film greatly, but I also want to leave Tales from Mercy for another day.
Yeah, Tales from Mercy's it's an interesting case. And you're expecting something bad to happen? Here we go!
God damn, it just turned into Nausicaa.
Pretty much, yeah. The place is getting bombed. Delightful.
I gotta say, young Sophie with the grey hair is pretty aesthetic.
Aesthetically pleasing is the term I believe you're searching for there,
Oh,
Tom.
I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. God, this is terrifying. So they're trying to flush Sophie out or something?
I think this is the enemy trying to, destroy the town, effectively.
Beautifully animated explosions.
Gorgeously animated explosions.
Oh. She was a kind of shitty character at first, but I've grown to like the Witch of the Voice.
Yeah, she's developed into that doddery old woman who's still a bitch, but manages to get away with being a bitch because she's just a doddery old woman.
We were talking in The Cat Returns about how maybe some people had a bit of a sexual awakening with the Baron. How many people became fucking featheries or whatever the bird equivalent is with friggin' harpy Howl?
To be honest, I think most people would have just done it with just regular Howl rather than, bird Howl, but I'm sure there are some weirdos who will have definitely gone for bird Howl, but those people are strange.
Just deflates like a beanbag chair, it's funny.
Yeah.
Aww. Aww.
I just love this film so much.
Wait, hang on. Was he experiencing a vision when he went through the black door? Because this is pretty similar to what happened.
Yeah.
It's magic. I ain't gotta explain shit.
Basically, yes, and also, all war zones do tend to look the same.
Very, very poetic, Rich. God, it's like a zombie apocalypse.
Very much so, yes.
So I'm assuming because of the enchantments placed on the abode that they can't get in.
Well, they're certainly struggling to at the present moment in time, but yeah, it's a bit difficult. And because of whatever the Witch of the Waste fed to Calcifer, yeah, he's not doing too good either. Better now that, Howl's returned and just gone, there you go, matey, but still not great.
Oh, doing better than the ship, I think. Oh my god!
Yeah, he's like one proper full-on monster right now.
I think it's time to, take the castle on a bit of a joyride. Only then can we save Howl and his bishiness.
Well, tough. Sophie's gonna do it. Yeah, you probably want to stop any access those things would have to getting into the castle, so yeah, makes sense.
That's cool.
Definitely. They might have wanted to, back away a little bit further, but eh.
I mean, you could have used that thing as a war machine. It had plenty of turrets on hand.
Yeah, but I'm not sure it was necessarily built to do that. It just had them for the aesthetic, shall we say.
I don't appreciate turn, mister.
I have to say, I feel that right now, Sophie should use that trusty frying pan as a drying pan.
Fuck off! Ah! Oh, Brock. What do you like? Aw, adorable. He was outside in the rain, though. Does it really matter?
Yeah, not really, but I think he's freaking out because he's just going, oh my god, I'm going to die. And look, even the doggy's getting in on it.
Ah, I see. That is the moral.
Partially, but also, you know, she's just going, yeah, I'm just going to flatter you until you do what I want you to do, because you totally can. You're just being a whiny baby.
I guess that's part of the ritual. Oh, dark fire.
Now, I'd say that actually this look for Calcifer is arguably closer to what I think he's actually depicted as in the original novel. Which I think quite works out nicely. That was awful sentence structure, but I don't even care.
It's cool. It's cool. We've only got about 15 minutes left. Fuck it. You know, who cares about quality commentary? That's like 75% japes, 25% true, so don't take me at my word. Oh, it's the mini castle.
It's the mini castle. And it's much more mobile, thank God. Oh dear.
Yeah, Witch of the Waste is not going to be senile for much longer, I think.
No, I think she's going to do something pretty stupid.
Oh boy, here we go, Dr. Jeff! Well, I suppose if we're going to take on Howl, you need someone equally as powerful magic-wise.
Yes.
I like Sophie with short hair. She looks cool.
She definitely does.
Whee! God damn.
Yeah, she pretty dead after that. It's a miracle that thing's still moving, if you ask me.
So what's going to happen to Calcifer then?
Don't know. No, obviously I know because I've watched the film before, but
You cheeky. What do you like?
let's just continue the illusion of no, I have no idea whatsoever.
It's all gone. All of it. Never really noticed how, I was going to make a comparison to the Kaioshinas and the Gods of Destruction, like if one dies, the other does, but, this is much cooler, I think.
I mean, you are sort of looking at a similar outlook of if Calcifer dies, so does Howl, because obviously as the Witch of the Waste realised, Calcifer had Howl's heart. And obviously if the heart dies, then the body dies. But thankfully, that ring that Howl gave to Sophie is a pretty spectacular ring that will always lead the way back to the castle. Although I think it's perhaps less back to the castle and more, I suppose, leads the way to Howl's heart.
Very interesting. Alright, gotta enter the void. Show me the way, magic ring. This bit I definitely haven't seen before. This is all new to me.
Well, it's good because it's all going to surprise you then, and that's going to be delightful.
Alright, maybe what you got to show me. Tiny little kitchen, it seems.
Yep, pretty much. Little study, perhaps?
Could be both. Ah, the flower field.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. Still don't really understand the significance of these shooting stars.
I'm sure they'll make sense soon.
Oh.
We're about to see the moment that Howl lost his heart.
Huh. Hang on, didn't Madame Solomon have a bunch of, like, blonde versions of young Howl?
Yeah, I'm not sure whether they were young Howls. I have no idea what they were. Madame Sullivan's just a weird bitch. With very ambiguous motives.
Pretty boss to be able to catch a shooting star like that and not explode.
And also, maybe a little bit crazy, because, it's gonna kind of make him lose his heart, but, I suppose gives him untold cosmic power because he's eating a bloody star.
So did the shooting star replace his heart?
Sort of, but eating that shooting star gave birth to Calcifer.
Didn't really expect any time travel shenanigans here, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you.
No, but I feel that it works in the context of all the magic that we've seen, and also, the whole thing that I was saying about... Well, no, I was saying the Baron in the Cat Return should be a Time Lord, but Howl's basically a Time Lord as well. He just turns into a massive demon bird.
Yeah, I could see Jodie regenerating into him.
Yeah, definitely.
Just in time. Oh, Howl.
Yep. Although, was she just in time to save Howl or not? Because he seems pretty lost.
There you go. Is his other leg missing?
It's either missing or it's just tucked away. Either's a possibility.
That massive thing we saw at the end, and look at it now. Well, the beginning, rather. Sorry, the time travel threw me off. The simple fact that Howl's still alive must mean Calcifer is still alive, because, you know, if one dies, the other dies.
Pretty much, yes. But he is deathly weak right now.
We don't believe any of this.
Definitely not, but perhaps the Witch of the Waste isn't quite the awful cowbag that we thought she was.
Ah, there's the love that the Witch of the Waste was looking for.
Basically, yes.
Alright, here goes nothing. So did Hal ever really grow up?
I think that's sort of what is being implied here, is that his heart was still the heart of a child, and that is why he was so slightly emotionally immature, I suppose. Because, yeah, his heart had never grown up, so he was effectively still a bit of an adolescent and a stroppy child.
Nice contrast then with Sophie, an adolescent, well no, young adult being turned into an OAP.
Yeah.
Turnip head to the motherfucking rescue. It's cool, we're just gonna chill here.
Yeah. Just a nice balancing act now.
Well, that's fairly creepy. Interesting. So that's why the war was going on in the first place.
Partially, yes. And just to make it, well, just to do that little bit of voice acting trivia, Prince Justin, as he's called, is voiced by Crispin Freeman, who most people would recognise as being Itachi in Naruto, and obviously many other things. Crispin Freeman's awesome.
Christ. Christ.
Making a happy ending happen.
Base doggo. And off he goes, bouncing through the sky. Is he magic then?
Must have a bit of magic in him, yeah.
Finally, she sees the light. Oh. All's well that ends well, hey Rich?
Indeed.
The flower shop has been fucking destroyed.
Yes, it has, but now the moving castle can fly and becomes the castle in the sky. And just, I love this ending so much. It's just lovely. And yeah, I just love House Moving Castle so much. It's just such a wonderful film to watch throughout the entirety of it. It's got it's really funny in moments, it's really dramatic in others, it's got wonderful messages, wonderful characters, stunning score with Merry Go Round of Life, and I just love it. It's easily my favourite Ghibli film of all, so if I'm allowed to give it an S rank, I definitely would.
Okay, I'll let you have that. S on the dot. I'm going to give it an A, because love the animation, love the characters, the story is great, it's well paced, action scenes are cool, comedy is well woven into the the fabric of the narrative, and it's just really enjoyable. And none of it feels schlocky or cliched, which is kind of hard to do when you're doing like a love story. It's a very fine line between schlock and brilliance, I think. But
oh, definitely,
it excelled at everything, and the voice cast was great too. So yeah, one of the better films. Unfortunately, I do like Spirited Away more, but that's mostly because of the story and like the setting and whatnot.
Yeah.
So that's why it doesn't get an A+, but it's definitely in the top percentage of the films we've watched so far. But maybe we'll go to the polar opposite next time, because next time we are going to be checking out Tales from Earthsea. So Merry Christmas, you fuckers. You're getting shite for Christmas. Bye-bye.